Hello brothers, and welcome to Sigma Old Man channel. If you don't fit in, they'll first ignore you, then mock you, then label you the problem. It's a strange paradox. The person who talks the least, thinks the deepest, and walks their own path somehow becomes the villain in everyone else's story. But why? Why is the Sigma, the one who avoids drama, sidesteps power games, and minds their own empire, so often misunderstood, feared, or even hated? Here's a cold, hard psychological fact. Humans are biologically wired to trust what's familiar, even if it's toxic, and reject what they can't label. And guess who refuses to come with a label, a tribe, or an easy-to-digest backstory? You guessed it, the Sigma. While everyone else is busy fitting into social molds like anxious Play-Doh, Sigmas are out here building entire blueprints from scratch. And that alone is enough to make normal people lose sleep. Let's be honest. Most people don't want you to be free. They want you to be predictable. And Sigmas? They're about as predictable as a cat with a PhD in philosophy. So no, the Sigma isn't the bad guy. But in a world addicted to obedience, independence looks like a threat. Let's break down exactly why normal people see Sigmas as the villain and why that reaction says more about them than it ever did about you. Number one, they refuse to be cosigned into relevance. Most people spend their entire lives trying to be liked. They chase approval like oxygen, whether it's from friends, family, social media followers, or their boss. They align themselves with people who are popular, powerful, or trending just to feel a little more important by association. It's a survival tactic. They think if I'm seen with them, maybe I matter too. But Sigmas don't play that game. They don't ask for validation, and they sure as hell don't need someone else's stamp to feel real. They walk into a room already convinced of who they are. No audience required. And that level of self-certainty, it burns people who depend on external approval to feel complete. See, when you're around someone who needs no permission to exist fully, it forces a brutal internal audit. Suddenly you realize how many of your own moves were made to impress someone. You start questioning why you care so much about being liked, and that's not a comfortable place to be. This is why normal people often see the Sigma as arrogant, cold, or even threatening. It's not that the Sigma thinks they're better, it's that they don't need anyone to tell them they're enough. That's a direct challenge to the social system most people have invested their entire identity into. The truth is, many people are addicted to cosigns. They need to be backed, liked, endorsed, or followed. Without that, they feel invisible. So when a Sigma shows up, unapologetically whole and uninterested in playing the approval game, it doesn't just confuse people, it exposes them. They wonder, how are you okay without a cheer squad? And the Sigma's quiet answer is, because I never needed one to begin with. That's where the hate starts. Not from anything the Sigma said or did, but from what they didn't need: approval, recognition, permission. That level of freedom makes people uncomfortable because it reminds them of how trapped they really are. So they label the Sigma the problem, the bad guy, the lone wolf that's too proud. But deep down they know the truth, they just don't want to admit it. Number two, Sigmas don't feed the machine, they watch it burn. Most people are unknowingly part of a machine, a system built on routines, rules, roles, and rewards. Go to school, follow the rules, get a job, nod when you're supposed to, post the right opinions online, clap when others clap, stay in line, and above all, don't question the script. That's how the world keeps spinning smoothly. The machine needs you obedient, predictable, and plugged in. But Sigmas? They don't just step outside that machine, they pull the plug and watch it short circuit. They question the point of the system itself, not out of rebellion for rebellion's sake, but because they actually see it for what it is, a structure designed to control, distract, and drain. And when someone stops feeding the machine, that's when the system turns hostile. Society doesn't reward unplugged people, it punishes them. Because when one person walks away, it threatens the illusion that everyone else is stuck in. It raises uncomfortable questions. Why am I still here? What am I even doing? Do I actually believe in this, or have I just been complying out of fear? The Sigma, without saying a word, becomes the spark that exposes the lie everyone's been living. That's why normal people label the Sigma as dangerous. Not because they're violent, not because they're reckless, but because they refuse to be controlled. The machine is powered by people pleasers, role players, and approval chasers. Sigmas opt out of all of it. They don't play along, and they don't pretend to respect systems they see through. What makes it worse is that they don't even try to tear it all down. They just walk away and build their own code. That quiet defiance is louder than any protest, and it's contagious. People see someone living freely and start questioning why they aren't. That's the real reason Sigmas are seen as the bad guys, because they don't just survive outside the system, they thrive. And the world doesn't know how to deal with someone who refuses to power the machine but somehow keeps rising anyway. To people who are trapped, freedom always looks like a threat, and Sigmas, they don't ask for freedom, they take it. Number 3, Sigmas make you realize you settled. Seeing a Sigma operate in the world is uncomfortable, not because they're trying to make a statement, but because their existence is a statement. They move without asking permission. They choose without waiting for consensus. They live without needing to be watched, praised, or accepted. And the more you observe them, the more you start to feel something gnawing at you. The realization that you didn't have to live the way you've been living, that's the sting. The silent ache that creeps in when a Sigma walks past with calm detachment, completely unbothered by the rules you've spent years trying to follow. You start to remember every time you stayed quiet just to fit in. Every time you took the safer path to avoid being judged. Every time you said yes when your gut screamed no. You realize how much of your identity was built to survive, not to be you. And that kind of realization is brutal. It doesn't come with tears or drama. It shows up as quiet resentment. You don't hate the Sigma because they're rude or arrogant. You hate what they remind you of, your own compromise, your own watered-down potential, your own silent decision to settle for less than who you could have been. It's easier to call them cold, easier to label them as weird, antisocial, or too intense. That way you don't have to admit that deep down you envy their freedom. Their independence makes your attachment to approval look like a prison. Their silence makes your constant talking feel like noise. Their self-trust exposes the way you outsource your worth to other people's opinions. Most people don't want to feel that way. So they flip it. They turn the mirror into a target. He thinks he's better than us. She doesn't care about anyone. But the truth is, the Sigma never made you feel small. They just showed you how small you made yourself to be accepted. And once you see that, you can either face it or project it. Most choose projection, because changing your life takes courage. But resenting a Sigma, that's free. Number 4, they're the anti-narrative. People are obsessed with stories, not just in books or movies, but in real life. They need to label others quickly, assign them roles, wrap their existence in a clean little narrative. He's the underdog. She's the success story. He's the rebel. She's the victim turned survivor. That's how society makes sense of people, by turning them into characters with predictable arcs. But Sigmas, they don't play characters. They refuse the script entirely. They don't care if they're misunderstood. They don't need to be the good guy, the comeback kid, the misunderstood genius, or the tragic loner. They don't need their pain to become a brand or their silence to be explained. They're not trying to become anything. They already are. And that alone breaks the system, because when someone refuses to play a role, it makes others feel lost. What do we do with this person? What's their angle? What's their story? But there isn't one. Sigmas walk through life unedited. There's no dramatic backstory they'll feed you to win sympathy. No Instagram-ready arc. No tidy explanation to make you feel like you understand them. And that frustrates people deeply. Most people aren't searching for connection. They're searching for patterns, predictability. They want to be able to say, oh, he acts that way because of X, Y, Z. But Sigmas don't give you that luxury. They're complex, layered, contradictory, and they're fine with that. They're not here to be decoded. They don't need your understanding to feel complete. This refusal to be gotten makes them look dangerous, or confusing, or suspicious. Because in a world where identity is currency, Sigmas choose to be unbranded. They're the glitch in the system, the person who isn't rising, falling, healing, breaking, becoming. They're just being. And that stillness, that refusal to arc like a good protagonist, is treated like rebellion. Because when you're used to people being stories, someone being real feels like an error. Sigmas aren't the main character in your drama. They're the page that refuses to be written on. Number 5. Sigmas aren't afraid of the dark, yours or theirs. Most people live their lives trying to bury the parts of themselves they don't want to face. The jealousy, the insecurity, the anger, the obsession with control, the addiction to validation. They pretend those parts don't exist. They wrap themselves in positivity, fake smiles, and spiritual quotes, hoping no one ever sees what's underneath. To them, being good means being light all the time, so they hide their darkness and expect others to do the same. But Sigmas don't hide, they confront. They've sat with their own shadows. They've stared into the uncomfortable, twisted corners of their minds without flinching. Instead of pretending to be perfect, they've learned to integrate the chaos, to understand it, and in many cases, to use it. They've made peace with the fact that darkness isn't something to run from, it's something to understand. And that's terrifying to people who've spent their entire lives in denial. Because when a Sigma speaks with calm certainty about things others are afraid to even whisper, rage, betrayal, manipulation, ambition, it forces people to confront their own inner chaos. It's not that Sigmas are dangerous, it's that they're not scared of what makes you feel dangerous. They're not triggered by your shadow. They can see it, name it, and still stand there without judgment. That kind of composure isn't common. Most people need others to reflect their light back at them to feel safe. So when someone walks in who doesn't blink at the dark, who doesn't shame it, and who doesn't fake being pure, they don't know what to do with that. They start projecting. He's intense. She's dark. There's something off about them. But what they're really saying is, they're not scared like I am. And that unsettles me. Sigmas know that real strength isn't pretending to be pure. It's having the discipline to sit with your darkness and not let it rule you. It's knowing your inner monster without letting it control your hands. And that scares people because if you're not afraid of your own shadow, you're harder to manipulate, harder to guilt, harder to shame. And in a world where fear is the leash, being unafraid of the dark makes you look uncontrollable. Number 6, Sigmas. Choose integrity over likability. Most people are experts at emotional editing. They water themselves down, round off the sharp edges, and swallow their real thoughts just to keep things smooth. It's not always out of fear, it's survival. Smile when you're uncomfortable. Agree when you don't. Stay quiet when something feels wrong. All for the sake of being liked, accepted, or at the very least, not rejected. But Sigmas don't bend like that. They don't shrink to fit a room. They don't compromise their truth for comfort or play nice to keep peace that feels fake. If something feels off, they say it. If a belief feels false, they question it. If a situation feels wrong, they walk away, even if it means walking alone. They value integrity over likability, and that choice makes them stand out in a world obsessed with approval. It's not that Sigmas enjoy being disliked. They're just not addicted to being liked. They know that being real will cost them connections, opportunities, and sometimes even relationships. But they're willing to pay that price. Because to them, living as a diluted version of themselves is a far worse loss. This is where the tension starts. When someone refuses to play the likability game, they disturb the ones who do. People who are constantly managing impressions feel exposed around someone who isn't. It's like the Sigma's honesty pulls everyone else's performance into the light. And not everyone wants to see what they've become just to be accepted. So they label the Sigma as harsh, rude, too blunt, or antisocial. Not because the Sigma is any of those things, but because the Sigma's refusal to be fake makes everyone else feel guilty about being fake themselves. And instead of dealing with that discomfort, they project it outward. But the Sigma doesn't flinch. They'd rather be called difficult than dishonest. They'd rather speak an unpopular truth than nod to a convenient lie. And they're fine being misunderstood if that's the cost of staying true. In a world that rewards polished masks and punishes raw truth, Sigmas break the system simply by being whole. And for people built on likability, wholeness feels like a threat. Number 7, they don't perform morality theater. In today's world, morality has become a performance. People say what sounds right, post what looks good, and behave in ways that win applause. Not because they believe in it, but because they want credit. It's not about integrity, it's about optics. This is the stage most people live on. Say the right things, show the right outrage, support the right causes, and you're labeled a good person. Sigmas don't play that game. They don't care about the script. They live by an internal code, one that doesn't need to be tweeted, praised, or socially approved. Their version of right and wrong isn't dictated by trends or tribes. It's shaped by personal truth, observation, and hard-won clarity. And because of that, their actions often confuse people. Sigmas can be kind but not perform kind. They can be brutally honest without sugarcoating it for comfort. They'll help someone in need without filming it for likes. And they'll walk away from a socially approved cause if they sense it's fake or manipulative, no matter how righteous it looks on the surface. This offends people, not because the Sigma is immoral, but because they're not interested in performing the appearance of morality. They don't virtue signal, they don't play the good guy. And when someone doesn't advertise their goodness, others assume the worst. Because most people have been trained to associate loud righteousness with moral value. So when a Sigma moves in silence, rejects the spotlight, or makes a decision that doesn't fit the group narrative, people start projecting they're cold, they're selfish, they must not care. But really the Sigma just refuses to wear the costume of goodness. They are good on their own terms, quietly, without applause, without witnesses. And that's what people can't process. A morality that doesn't need approval, a sense of right that doesn't bend for popularity. In a world where everyone's shouting, "Look how noble I am," the Sigma simply acts. No hashtags, no cameras, no audience. To most, that silence looks suspicious, because when you're used to morality as theater, authenticity feels dangerous. Number 8, their eyes say, "I see through you." There's something about a Sigma's eyes that makes people shift in their seats. It's not aggression and it's not curiosity, it's clarity. They don't just look at people, they see them deeply, quietly, without filters. And for most people, that's unsettling as hell, because let's be honest, most of society is built on performance. Fake smiles, fake confidence, half-truths dressed up as authenticity. People wear social masks so often they forget they're even wearing one. But a Sigma's gaze cuts through all of it. They spot the nervous twitch behind the charm, the ego hiding under humility, the desperation wrapped in positivity. They notice what's not being said, and that makes people feel seen in ways they're not ready for. It's not that Sigmas go around judging everyone. They don't have to. Their stillness invites self-exposure. People end up revealing things around a Sigma they didn't mean to. Not because they were tricked, but because the Sigma's energy pulls the truth to the surface. There's no need for interrogation, just presence. And that kind of presence is rare. Most people interpret this as intimidation. They make me feel weird, or they're too intense, but that's not the truth. The truth is they feel exposed, and exposure is terrifying when you've built your life on half-truths. This is why people say things like, "There's something about him I don't trust," or "She's too quiet, it's creepy." What they really mean is, "I can't hide around them, and that makes me nervous." The Sigma didn't say a word, but their presence said everything. It said, "I see the performance, you can drop it or keep pretending. Either way, I won't play along," and that's the part people can't handle. Because most social interaction is a game of "I'll believe your lie if you believe mine." Sigmas don't enter that contract. They observe. And their observation feels like judgment, even when it isn't. That's the power of the Sigma gaze. It doesn't demand truth, it extracts it. Number 9, Sigmas threaten the social food chain. Every social setting has an invisible food chain. There's the loud leader who thrives on attention. The loyal followers who keep the leader in power. The agreeable ones who stay neutral to survive. Everyone plays their part. Everyone knows the rules. It's predictable, and most people are comfortable with it, even if they secretly hate their role, because it gives them a place, a label, an identity. Then a Sigma enters the room, and all of that collapses. They're not loud, they're not submissive, they're not seeking approval. They don't care who the alpha is or what the unspoken rules are. They observe, assess, and operate completely outside of the social blueprint. And yet somehow, without trying, they draw the kind of attention and respect that others have been scrambling for. This is what makes Sigmas dangerous to the social order. They don't compete, and yet they outrank, not through dominance, but through detachment. Their power isn't built on controlling others, it's built on not needing anyone to play along. They show up, self-contained, fully grounded, and instantly become a wild card. People don't know how to place them. And when someone can't be placed, they can't be controlled. This breaks the entire system. The alpha starts to feel insecure because their spotlight dims in the Sigma's quiet presence. The betas feel confused. Should they follow the one who speaks the loudest or the one who clearly doesn't care but still radiates authority? The fillers feel invisible because the Sigma doesn't perform for anyone, and that makes their own social effort feel hollow. This disruption triggers something primal. People rely on social hierarchies to feel safe and superior, but the sigma throws a wrench in the system by proving you don't need to climb the ladder. You can burn it and still stand taller. That kind of independence is a threat to anyone who built their identity by playing the social game. So the sigma is labeled arrogant, difficult, too cool. But the truth is simple. They didn't break the rules. They just proved the rules were never real. Number 10, sigmas redefine power without needing a throne. Power, to most people, is something you chase. It's a job title, a blue check mark, a flashy car, a loud voice, or a carefully constructed image. It's something they feel they need to earn by pleasing the right people, climbing the right ladder, or saying what others want to hear. And once they finally get it, they hold on to it with both hands, terrified someone will come along and outshine them. Then a sigma walks in. No throne, no crown, no spotlight. And suddenly everyone can feel who the real center of the room is. Sigmas don't try to command respect, they just do. And that fact alone unravels the lie society has sold for centuries, that power must be visible, loud, and externally validated. Sigmas flip that idea upside down. Their power comes from the fact that they don't need to be seen. They don't compete. They don't posture. They just are, unshakable, self-possessed, and deeply aware of their own worth. And that right there threatens everything. Because if a person can walk in, say little, and still outshine everyone else without effort, what does that say about the people who've been screaming for attention their whole lives? What does that say about all the effort poured into image, likes, branding, and trying to be somebody? Sigmas expose that power isn't earned through noise, it's earned through presence, and presence can't be faked. This is why Sigmas often get misunderstood or even resented. They don't play the dominance game, and yet they dominate. Not through intimidation, but through clarity. Not by controlling others, but by mastering themselves. That kind of energy rearranges the room. It forces everyone to feel the gap between true power and performed power, and that gap is brutal. People spend years climbing to the top of a social hill only to realize the sigma never climbed it in the first place, because they were never interested. They built a different mountain entirely, one no one else even saw. And that's why sigmas don't need a throne to rule. They carry the kingdom within them, and it's the kind of power that can't be given, stolen, or faked. Number 11, they don't need your tribe. They built their own wilderness. Belonging is everything in the normal world. People will trade their opinions, values, and even identities just to feel part of a group. Whether it's family, friends, religion, career circles, or online communities, most people are constantly negotiating who they are just to stay accepted. Approval is currency, and conformity is the price of admission. Sigmas don't pay that price. In fact, they burn the currency entirely. They don't need a tribe to validate them, protect them, or define them. They walk alone, not because they were pushed out, but because they chose to leave. Not out of bitterness, but because their soul was never for sale. That kind of independence, it short-circuits the group-dependent mind. People who rely on tribal identity for meaning don't know how to process someone who functions fully outside of it. They don't understand how a person can make big life decisions without consulting a circle, how they can trust their gut without needing backup, or how they can sleep peacefully without belonging to any particular camp, club, or clique. To the tribe, this isn't just strange, it's threatening, because sigmas expose the quiet truth most people don't want to face, that their sense of self is a group project. And when someone comes along who doesn't need the group at all, it doesn't just feel unfamiliar, it feels like betrayal. It's as if the sigma is breaking some unwritten rule. If we all need the tribe to survive, why don't you? The answer is simple. Sigmas didn't reject the tribe to rebel, they outgrew it. They built their own wilderness, where their thoughts are unfiltered, their values uncompromised, and their identity untouched by external hands. It's not a lonely place. It's sacred ground, and it can't be bought, joined, or inherited. You either walk the fire alone, or you don't. This is why many people project coldness, arrogance, or strangeness onto sigmas. They need a label to explain what they don't understand. But deep down they know the sigma's solitude isn't isolation, it's self-sovereignty. And in a world terrified of being alone, that level of freedom doesn't look admirable. It looks unforgivable. Number 12. They break the echo chamber and pay for it. Most people don't realize they live in echo chambers. They're surrounded by people who think like them, talk like them, vote like them, post like them. It's comfortable, it feels safe. Their opinions bounce around, get repeated back, and eventually get mistaken for absolute truth. No friction, no challenge, just cozy consensus. Then a Sigma enters the room, and they don't play along. They're the one who asks the question that no one else dares to ask. The one who doesn't laugh at the safe joke. The one who hears the group's obvious truth and replies, "Says who?" They're not trying to stir the pot. They just refuse to sip the soup without knowing what's in it. That one act, breaking the flow, disrupting the mutual backpatting, is enough to make people turn cold. Because the echo chamber isn't just about belief. It's about belonging. People think alike so they can feel alike. They mistake agreement for connection. So when someone like a Sigma introduces a different frequency into that noise loop, it doesn't come off as refreshing. It comes off as threatening. Not because what they said was offensive, but because it forced people to think for themselves. And thinking for yourself is uncomfortable when you've built your identity on borrowed thoughts. This is where the punishment begins. Sigmas don't just get ignored, they get sidelined, labeled too intense, too critical, or difficult. Not because they're wrong, but because they refuse to co-sign collective laziness. The echo chamber thrives on automatic agreement. Sigmas operate on independent analysis. That's oil and water. And the worst part? The people who resent the Sigma the most are the ones who secretly agree with them. But agreement would cost them acceptance. So instead they defend the echo chamber louder than ever, hoping to drown out their own inner doubt. Sigmas don't need the chamber. They prefer the silence of truth over the noise of validation. But breaking the loop comes with a price. Alienation, rejection, and misunderstanding. Still they do it anyway, not for attention, not for applause, but because fake comfort is never worth the price of mental slavery. In a world built on masks, performance, and silent obedience, the Sigma is a glitch, one that can't be smoothed over or explained away. They don't ask to belong. They don't bend to be accepted. They don't wait to be understood. They just exist, whole, self-contained, and unapologetically outside the system. And that's what makes them the villain in the eyes of normal people. Because the truth is, Sigmas don't break the world's rules to destroy. It's just that they never agreed to them in the first place. They don't challenge power to take it. They simply expose that it was never real. They don't speak loudly, but their silence reveals everything. And they don't reject the tribe to be edgy. They walk away because conformity feels like death to the soul. They threaten the echo chamber with one honest thought. They terrify the insecure without saying a word. They dismantle performance by simply being real. And in a world addicted to illusion, that kind of raw presence feels like chaos. So people label them cold, arrogant, mysterious, or difficult. But deep down, it's not hatred, it's fear. Fear of someone who doesn't need your permission to live fully. Fear of someone who reminds you of the freedom you buried. Fear of someone who sees you, past the roles, past the noise, past the mask. That's why Sigmas are always cast as the villain in someone else's play. Not because they did wrong, but because they refuse to perform. And that kind of defiance, it doesn't need an audience, it is the show. If this hit you in the gut, it wasn't by accident. You're not here by coincidence. You're here because something in you refuses to be tamed, boxed, or scripted. If you're done pretending and ready to start seeing, then this channel is your sanctuary. So do what the algorithms hate, but your instincts love. Subscribe for more brutally honest truths they don't want you to hear, like if you felt every word. Comment below. Drop your thoughts, your fire, your truth. And share this with someone who's quietly waking up from the noise. Because the world needs fewer followers and more free minds. Stay sharp, stay sovereign, stay you.